TAF Africa's observation and analysis of the 2023 general election indicates that it fell short of our expectations in terms of the inclusivity of persons with disabilities. Ahead of the 2023 general elections, TAF Africa trained and deployed 700 observers in the 36 states, including the FCT, to monitor the conduct of the presidential elections as it affects the participation of persons with disabilities. Yesterday, we also deployed 340 trained observers in the 28 states that conducted the gubernatorial state assembly elections. South Africa had expected that the provision of the Electoral Act mandating the Independent National Electoral Commission to provide assistive tools for persons with disabilities at the polling units where registered will be sufficiently implemented. Unfortunately, this obligation was treated with laxity in most polling units with registered persons with disabilities, thereby frustrating their participation in the electoral process. The 2023 general election was ruined by the lack of transparency expected of a credible election, weak inclusivity, and lack of restraint from political parties and their supporters, which exacerbated political tensions, divisiveness, and violence at various polling units across the country. This action continued to undermine democratic progress Nigeria has made over the years. Again, the Independent National Electoral Commission missed another opportunity to present itself as a truly inclusive institution by going back on its commitments to ensuring hate-free participation in the electoral process by the community of persons with disabilities. TAF Africa's post-election key findings on disability inclusion. We have one, poor deployment of assistive tools. South Africa observed the inadequate deployment of assistive tools at the polling units. From the observed polling units, 36% had braille ballot guides for the visually impaired. 24% had magnifying glasses for persons with albinism, and 67% had large font graphic posters for the deaf. It is noteworthy that TAF Africa's findings are based on reports from 331 sampled polling units and analyzed in the Persons with Disabilities Election Hub. 2. Arrival of INEC officials and commencement of polls. In the polling units observed, South Africa observers noted the early arrival of INEC officials at the polling units. Our findings reveal that out of the polling units observed, 87% of them recorded early arrival of INEC officials and 67% of early voting commencement. 3. Access to polling units and priority voting. On accessibility, TAF Africa observers reported the accessibility of the polling units at 96% of the polling units observed, while priority voting was observed in 77% of the polling units. Critical incidences. One, we heard with great dismay the attacks on journalists and other media professionals that covered yesterday's governorship and House of Assembly election in some parts of the country, including Lagos, Ogun, and Rivers State. We wish to state emphatically that such incidents, whatever the motivation, are highly condemnable, unjustifiable, and indeed a dent in the sanctity of the principle of media freedom. We hereby call on the Inspector General of Police to to carry out investigations and ensure that the perpetrators of this wicked act are brought to book. 2. Gunshots from thugs dispersed voters and INEC officials at the commencement of polls in Rivers State, a mobile local government area of Bakiri Ward, Rumuda Town Hall polling booth, leaving many voters injured, while 2 voters allegedly lost their lives. It was confirmed that voting did not take place in the said polling unit. I leave
First round of the election for INEC to provide details on how assistive tools were deployed to various polling units, bearing in mind the various clusters of disabilities and their peculiar needs. The following recommendations should be adopted. 1. INEC should conduct a thorough scrutiny of polling units where elections did not take place to establish the reasons for the failure, knowing that public confidence partly depends on it. Number 2, INEC should communicate with the public on polling units across the country where the election did not hold and ensure the process is conducted in those locations before returns are made. 3. Security agencies should properly investigate polling units that experience political violence and thuggery and make sure that justice is served by bringing perpetrators to face the consequences of their acts. 4. A proper audit of the distribution of assistive devices should be carried out to ascertain what the cause and gaps were that led to the poor availability of assistive devices to identify polling units with persons with disability. TAF Africa calls on citizens to maintain the peace and patience so far demonstrated in the electoral process and await the official release of the results of the polls. We appeal to everyone to refrain from any act that could incite violence. We also call on political leaders and their supporters to conduct themselves in a peaceful manner at this time. Security agents should take appropriate action against any individual or party members who engage in violence or in incitement to violence in a professional manner with the utmost respect for the rule of law. TAF Africa calls on all political parties and aggrieved parties to pursue well-established constitutional and legal remedies available to them to seek redress. Finally, TAF Africa commends every Nigerian for the turnout recorded during the voting process yesterday, despite the distrust in the process and tension around the country. God bless the Federal Republic of Nigeria.